from New York, it's the Skift Travel Podcast. That's right, your favorite travel industry podcast, now in a live episode with special guest Steve Hafner, the CEO of Kayak. As always, still co-hosted by myself, Seth Borko, the head of research, and my colleague Sarah Kopit, Skift's editor-in-chief. Now, thankfully for you all, the listeners, there is no musical guest tonight, but we do have a wonderful podcast episode for you. We sat down live in New York City to talk about our Megatrends. We were joined by Steve Hafner, like I said, the CEO of Kayak. We talked about all sorts of awesome stuff, the future of Kayak, the future of metasearch, what he makes of AI, what he makes of the TikTok ban, what he thinks of social media and the other Megatrends, what he thinks about our travel trend for pet travel. Does Steve Hafner even have a pet? Well, if that's a question you've been asking yourself, guess what? We've got the answer in this episode. Anyways, it was a lot of fun recording this. It was a lot of fun doing this, and we hope you all enjoy the episode as much as we did. And so, without further ado, we bring you Steve Hafner, CEO of Kayak. Thanks for coming to our Megatrends.
It's my pleasure, Seth. Thanks for dialing in the cold weather.
Yeah. I'm sorry. I think I brought the weather to Florida when I was down there for you as well. You're a bit of an institution at our Megatrends, so we're glad to have you back. For everyone in the audience, there's two of us. There's myself and Sarah. This is, technically speaking, a live version of our Skift Travel Podcast that me and Sarah host. So for all of you here in the audience, it's just a normal Megatrend. Don't panic. But if you're a fan of the podcast, you're also on a live episode. So thanks for joining us. Steve, let's jump into it. The marquee trend, which Sarah just shared with us, is live tourism. I want to ask you about it. I was actually asking a little bit behind stage. You ever done any live tourism yourself?
Yeah, no, I'm not a Swiftie, but I did get tickets for my daughter Wilson to go see Taylor Swift in concert in Paris.
Did you go with her?
Heck no. I'm more of an F1 person, so I travel for F1, and it's a great thing to do, to see the world and then see the cars.
That's awesome. And are you seeing that live tourism, people traveling around? When you get an event on the counter, like an F1 or a Taylor Swift, do you see that show up in your business? Is that something that Kayak is trying to program towards?
We do, especially in smaller markets where, a headline event like that actually pushes the needle in terms of occupancy and travel spend. So it's one of the trends that we're leaning into.
It's funny, I had two sets of friends who ran into each other at the Taylor Swift concert in Paris, and neither one of them knew that the other one was going to be there. It's crazy.
Yeah, they should have linked accounts on Instagram.
I know, right? So I think we have a kind of a GIF of this. This is one of my favorite pieces of data viz from 2024, and it's that is the eclipse path that you guys see. This is from our friends at AirDNA, and this is for short-term rentals. What happened in the days leading up to the short-term, or leading up to the eclipse? So there's going to be another eclipse that goes through Europe in 2026. Is that on your radar yet at Kayak? It's going to go right through Spain on August 12th, 2026.
It's not on my radar, but I'm sure it's on someone in our teams. I'm looking at Kate Williams, who oversees all of our comms and PR efforts and growth hacking. And what we're trying to do, especially with the help of AI now, is anticipate these events and create landing pages and content so that it's discoverable in social media and other channels. So, when you come to Kayak, you actually get a result set that helps you achieve your
we were just, the great thing about eclipses is that you don't even have to anticipate them. You know exactly when it's going to be. It's going to be at 7:30 at night in Madrid on August 12th, 2026.
So Wednesday.
Is it? You checked. Yeah, we were trying to figure out what day it was. That's really interesting. So what other types of, like other than F1, I suppose World Cup as well, what other sorts of live events do you kind of notice and see like a critical mass of customers going around?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward stuff, right? I mean, eclipses don't happen that frequently, but the stuff that you can bank on is sporting events, concerts, traveling fan bases that will follow that stuff, and you should be able to build a program, we call it programmatic, so they're not all one-offs, a programmatic approach to this, so you can build the landing pages, build the content, get yourself out on Google and Instagram and et cetera to get that going. the one thing that we're still scratching our head and trying to figure out is, we know the interest is there. How do we commercialize that? Because you'll see lots of discussion on social media, but not a lot of easy paths to actually consummate a transaction. And I think that gets solved this year. It's one of the trends that we're a little bit more focused on than maybe you guys are.
And you're also involved with SeatGeek, right?
I am, yeah.
Do you think from the event side that they see travel as an opportunity?
So we've been trying to partner with SeatGeek. I'm on the board there and have been for a long time. We've been trying to partner with them on events, and we still haven't cracked, the right combination of content over event with a transaction flow.
Totally.
It's still for so many people it's different. Like you go to SeatGeek to buy your ticket, and then maybe you go to Kayak to do your flight search or your hotel search. But to put it on one page, I think is still a little bit too far for folks.
So, do you have a pet?
I do have a pet.
What kind of pet do you have?
It's a little golden doodle who's 13 pounds, and I'm definitely a fan of the pet travel.
Yeah.
We see it in our numbers as well. People looking for pet-friendly destinations, and it helps to have a small dog that you can fit on the plane.
I have a golden doodle.
And hide.
As well.
This is a true story. My parents got a dog, they got a poodle, and they picked the dog specifically based on whether it could fit on the carry-on of an airplane. That was their number one pet choice criteria.
It's very practical. What's your dog's name?
Milo.
Milo. How many pounds?
So Milo's a bit of a chonker, as the kids these days say. He should be about 20 pounds, but he's about 27 pounds. Yeah.
That's the cutoff. That's right around the cutoff.
Yeah, I'm getting shamed by this audience here for overfeeding my doodle. Yeah. So I'm the one that does it too. Like my husband is in charge of the kibble, and I'm the one that's like has like the spoon like on the other side of the table. So it's completely my fault. So yeah, Milo cannot fit on the airplane. He has to come in the car with us. He should be able. We tried to get it under the seat.
You got busted?
No. He just got too big.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So anyway, So anyway, Milo.
Well, you got to put him on the wrestler and boxer diet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
You're cutting your dog's weight right before the flight. We got a big fight.
Have you seen the eyes though? Like
when they need.
Yeah. Anyway, so do you see the pet like pet friendly checkbox, that filter? Is that really popular?
It's more popular than it used to be. I think it's around 6% of queries. I'm looking at Kate, just to memorize my talking points. So it's still relatively small, but for that 6% of people, it's a really important thing.
It's only 6%.
It does guide their decision making.
I'm surprised it's not more than 6%.
6% is a lot of searches.
Well, how many trips do you take your dog on? Right. So I fly for business all the time. I don't even think about taking the dog. But if I'm flying with the kids. Damn it, the dog's got to come.
Yeah. Yeah, we just normally take them on road trips again.
Well, I wanted to ask you about one of our other big trends is about influencers, about social media, the creator economy. And I think this is a really important trend. It has to do with directly in Kayak's wheelhouse, how people search, discover where they want to go, how they want to get there, what they want to do. What are your thoughts? Influencers are nothing new, but influencers integrated more deeply into the brands, into the e-commerce, into owning the transaction. That is something pretty cutting edge. What are you seeing with your social media partnerships at Kayak?
Yeah, so I think social media has finally grown up because their audience is growing up. So it used to be that we didn't care too much about Instagram and Snapchat and others, because with the eyeballs that were there were so young. The reality is now the eyeballs that are there and the engagement, they're starting to buy stuff.
Yeah.
And if you look at Google traffic and other channels that traditionally we've been very focused on, they're starting to stagnate. And I think AI and answer engines are going to accelerate that. So we've got our marketing team thinking very, very hard. What is Kayak's role in facilitating commerce on those social media sites? So it's all about enabling creators to suggest hotels or destinations, and then when the consumer clicks on that, to actually monetize it. And I think there's a lot of companies who are in this space already. Amazon does a very nice job at this. Expedia is probably the travel companies that's most ahead of us on this too. They've gone with with a curated list of creators. We're going to try to go mass market with it. So Seth, you can share your favorite destinations, and if someone actually buys through that, you get paid.
Pretty cool.
So we'll take social media and try to turn that into a performance marketing channel.
And by doing that, will you be able to, I guess, measure the results better? Like, I think one of the challenges with social media is you put a bunch of money into the social media space and do you get something back? I don't know.
Yeah, so we'll just basically treat you as an affiliate. So, if we can't measure it, by definition, it's not a performance marketing channel, right? I think we're not the only company thinking about this hard, but I think we've got, we're pretty nimble at Kayak, so I think we're ahead of a lot of other companies. But yeah, Sarah, same thing. If you put up a recommendation, including for restaurants, because OpenTable is also looking at this too, and someone clicks on that, or we can look at view through credit, and then we look at click credit and actually make a reservation, you get paid.
The restaurant social media thing, especially here in New York and in Miami, it's out of control. There's a whole sub-market of influencers just every single bite they eat. And people book travel on it. I did a big trip to Japan, and I can tell you, my partner, every single restaurant we were going to eat at was pretty much social media vetted before we even took off.
Yeah, show of hands. Who here uses Belly? Yeah, we need a Belly for travel. It's going to happen.
Interesting. So AI has been a big problem for Google, and Google has been a big problem for you. So is the enemy of your enemy your friend here? Is AI good for Kayak?
Gosh, I don't know yet. I think everyone's looking to see what does AI do ultimately. I think Google's been at the forefront of AI for a long, long time since they bought DeepMind, actually. But they've been very parsimonious about how they roll it out because they make the most money in the space off queries, right? So now you see AI snippets at the top, which is basically trying to answer your query right from Google, which they don't monetize, and which actually costs them a great deal of money of compute costs. So it'll be interesting to see how that rolls out. AI as a consumer, as a user, I think is incredible for everybody. In the travel business right now, it's mainly being used in the background to improve customer service. So when you have things that go wrong with your trips, when you need to make changes, that kind of stuff, it makes our agents a lot more effective. You also have a lot of startups who are doing trip planning and itinerary management with it, which are fun to use, but not terribly personalized. But I think the next frontier is actually going to be agentic AI that actually makes bookings for you. And at Kayak, we're trying to figure out, how do we do that? How do we let Gemini and Claude and all these other engines use our database and our content with the right permissions and right guardrails and make that a great consumer experience without killing the golden goose, not having people come to Kayak directly. And I think a lot of companies are trying to figure that one out too.
Yeah. Do you think is the future the agentic AI, or is it Kayak AI? Like, is it more important for you to be able to interface with OpenAI and Gemini and DeepMind, or is it more like, would you ever build your own AI?
It's all the above. We are building our own AI, and I think a lot of other companies are doing the same because the cost to do that is falling, right? You can use other language models, and then you feed it with your own data, and you get good results. But just because Kayak AI is better than the Kayak flavor on Gemini doesn't mean people won't use Gemini instead. So, we've got to do both.
And you kind of mentioned this idea of like, you got to adapt to AI and you can't kill the golden goose at the same time. Like, in a world, if we have these like agentic AIs where you're saying, hey, AI, do me this, do me that, like, how do you think that, in your mind, what's the plan for like Kayak to stay really relevant, really top of mind? So you say, hey, search Kayak for me instead of search, hotels for me. You know what I mean? Like, does that make sense?
Yeah, look, I think our reason to exist is to help consumers see all their travel options and help them see the lowest price, right? So I think there's always going to be a demand for that, whether you're making that as a voice query on Gemini or on ChatGPT, or whether you're typing it in, or whether you're asking Perplexity, visit Kayak and return lowest prices for the Four Seasons tomorrow night. The real question is, how does that get commercialized? Who takes credit for the actual booking?
Yeah.
Right? Does it go through Gemini to supplier direct and we get cut out, or does it go through Kayak pipes and we take credit for it and we get paid? So, I think that's where companies the whole adoption of AI, agentic AI, is going to be regulated by three things. One of them is consumer habit. Another one is regulators, because they're hesitant to let it go wild. And the third is the commercial agreements between the AI companies and then the folks who are the intermediaries, particularly folks big like Airbnb and Booking.com and others. So all that stuff's got to get sorted out before agentic AI really takes off.
How close do you think we are on those three things? Like, is this a 2025 thing on those three things?
I think my fear is it's a 2025 thing. So that's why we're all working on it so hard. But I think, it will take time, but once one of these AIs makes it work with one big travel player, everyone else is going to run to catch up. And so it's going to be a little bit like a dam breaking. And it's not going to be these obtuse, complex use cases. It's going to be, hey, can you cancel my trip? Or can you book a stay next week? Or can you book a flight that I take every week? That it's AA flight 1642. I take it every day, every week from Miami on Tuesday mornings up here. Can you book that? Yeah.
And that trains behavior too, right? Once you get the easy stuff and the dam starts to break, then you can get the more complex stuff.
And the question is, okay, would that booking go directly to AA? Or will it go to Booking.com? Or will it route through Kayak? We'll see.
Do you think that there's one, consumer-facing AI large language model that is best for travel? Like whether it's Gemini or ChatGPT or one of the others?
I don't. It's still such early days. I mean, I think all of you should be playing around with 6 or 7 different agents, and over time you'll find one that you like the most, and then you'll get lazy and just use it. For me, it goes back to the days, for those of you who remember it, when Google wasn't the beast that it is today, and there were actually 12 to 14 search engines. But over time, a couple of them led the way. So I think we're the early days there, but between Meta, Microsoft, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, X, you've got enough big players there that we've got a long runway ahead of us to figure out who's actually going to win.
I want to ask you about kind of the elephant or the elephants coming to Washington. We asked a lot of our travel leaders about how they felt about the Trump administration coming into the White House. People were very positive. How are you feeling?
Look, I'm not a fan of big government. So if there's less regulation there and more free enterprise, let's sort out our own solutions. I'm a big fan of that.
Do you think that that's what's going to happen over the next 4 years eventually?
I have no crystal ball on that. And I think the folks who are making decisions on regulation and AI probably don't understand it very well and probably don't use these tools. My desire and my wish would be that they take a very light touch on regulating something that hasn't even, made an impact economically yet.
We do have some audience questions.
Let's go.
For the rest of the Megatrends, if you have Slido questions, please put them in. I like this one here in the bottom. Generational differences among travelers using your platform, strategies to attract and engage millennials and Gen Zs that maybe ties into our social media, but we also can't paint these generations. They're not just social media addicts, although some of them are. What are you seeing generationally?
Yeah, look, I think if you took our cohorts and split out, the younger you are, the more open-minded you are. In terms of destinations and things to do. The more you trip stack, you cover multiple destinations on the same trip. The more flexible you are in terms of time, and the less money you actually are willing to pay for accommodations versus extending the length of your trip. So if you look broadly, that's kind of how it goes. What's unclear to me though is as people get older, that flexibility on the experience, what to expect, being able to roll with it, being able to take tons of time off, being able to say, I'm okay sleeping in a $100 a night room so I can save money for travel or for food or for activities versus, hey, I'm with 3 friends, we only have 2 weeks off a year and we want to make the most of our time and, we can't afford any hiccups. So I think it'll mature over time. But the biggest difference besides that behavioral is what channels they're using to make those decisions. And my fear is that they will stop going to traditional travel sites by visiting them or downloading an app, and they'll rely more and more on social media, because that's where they're already spending their time, and then ChatGPT and these AI models where you get answers.
Yeah.
How are you feeling about TikTok?
I wish TikTok was in the US to stay. I hope someone buys them and gets approved, because I would hate for that platform to go away. It's fun. It's interesting, right?
And
I don't really care about the Chinese having all my data, but I'm not the only one who thinks that way. So hopefully a deal will get done there. It would be a shame to lose TikTok's access for folks.
Book and Holden acquiring TikTok. I see it in the future, right?
What's that?
Book and Holden's acquires TikTok.
Yeah, I don't think so. If they would take Kayak stock, we'd do it.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot of data, a lot of stock, a lot of data. I mean, what do you see as, you've seen our Megatrends, you've got your own data. What do you see as the big things for 2025 that you're most excited about? We're releasing our own WTF report soon, which is what the travel, by the way. And I think the trends that you see are probably the ones that we do, right? The ones we haven't talked about is like the rise of premium class. The airlines are getting very, very adept at merchandising the travel experience. Hotels will soon follow, as you mentioned. International, it's 2/3 of our query volume now at Kayak. So people are definitely trying to get abroad and widen their horizons, which is great to see.
Why do you think that is?
Because the U.S. is a big country, but it's in a large format. It's pretty much the same everywhere you go. So yeah, the scenery changes, but it's pretty homogenous. So if you really want to push the envelopes, you got to go somewhere else, preferably a non-English speaking place. And Asia seems to be the hot ticket these days in our numbers, particularly Japan. And a lot of that's being driven by social media. I mean, if you jump on social media, type in Sapporo or Osaka, you're going to get diluted with amazing pictures. And you see those pictures like, hell yeah, I want to go.
My kids are 10 and 13, and lately, all of a sudden, they've started coming up with these like very, very far away, very international places where they're like, my kid was like, can we go to Dubai? I'm like, how do you even know where Dubai is? And he's seen the supercars on TikTok.
Yeah.
And it's amazing where the youth are coming up with it's not a Mexican all-inclusive.
Yeah, look, one of the reasons we travel is because we crave something different. And the U.S. is just homogenous. I'm sorry, it is.
So, do you have any more trends that you're seeing that are kind of different than the ones that we have already talked about?
Look, I spend most of my time thinking not just about how people are searching, but where they're searching, which I've covered, and what Kayak's role is in that. So for me, I'm less interested in the WTF report and the Skift Megatrends report, honestly, than how Kayak can keep up with the changing dynamics of consumer behavior and technologies. But I think out of the 10 or so that you listed, we agree on 7 of them.
Yeah. So I just have to ask this question. I just love the pet one. Do you know what the top search destination is for pets?
I don't. Kate? Yeah, we can definitely find out, but I don't. I mean, I would suspect that it's different for flights versus for hotels, road trips. Yeah, but I don't know. My guess would also be that it ties in with our top destinations, which would be New York, LA, etc.
We actually had another question about New York, which asked if there were any specific New York City trends that you saw.
The biggest trend we've seen in New York is really strong consumer interest to come here and really high prices as a result.
What do you think about
I don't think the city did itself any favors by taking the prohibitive measures they have against Airbnb.
That got a murmur from the crowd. Yeah, you all are very interested in that.
Yeah, how many people here came in or are actually paying to stay the night? Very few. Okay, so you guys don't care that much in the room, but I got to tell you, when you look at hotel rates on Kayak, they're way up for New York. And I'm like, gosh, you tend to see lots of bad headlines about crime, et cetera, in New York, and it hasn't stopped people from coming.
Yeah. And New York hotels are.
Yeah, you don't get a lot of.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't get a lot of space for your bang for your buck necessarily.
No.
Yeah, Sarah.
Oh, okay. So let's go to some more questions related to generations. How closely should Gen Alpha, so these are my kids, be catered to? It's the TikTok generation.
Yeah, look, ultimately every company wants to chase the youngest generation right at the edge of when they start spending money.
Yeah.
And Gen Alpha is approaching that rapidly. Some of them already are there. So, we're very attentive to that because consumer behavior does shift. Like, it's just not cool to use Google anymore. For some of these folks, it's not cool to use desktop or laptop for a lot of these folks too. So we're very attentive to that. I wish I had the answer, but I do think it's going to be something with agentic AI, answer models versus Google search results, and then social media. We see that influencers, creators, whatever you want to call them, they really do move the needle on people. There used to be in my generation, we'd go to TripAdvisor, and say, oh, look, TripAdvisor, let's read these reviews. You don't have to read reviews anymore. You can get a synopsis of a hotel that you saw on an influencer feed, and you say, hey, I trust that influencer's recommendations on fashion, other verticals, places to go. Yeah, I'll trust that. I'll quickly throw that into ChatGPT, and I'll get a summary of all the reviews for that hotel or for that destination, and let's book. So that's where we need to go.
You ever had the experience of looking at an influencer and they're giving recs to people and it's about like Miami or New York City and you're like, these are terrible. And you're like, who's listening?
I do.
For sure. I mean, use any of those itinerary management AI startups and type in your stuff. You'll get crappy restaurants, and some crappy hotels. So I think ultimately what you're going to care about is people that you trust. And it's going to be really easy to tease out from the people that you trust where you should be going and where you should be staying and where you should be eating. And that's going to come about. It's going to be really great for the travel industry as a whole, because if you make things easier, typically consumption of it goes up. What's still unclear is how does the share of bookings get translated across the companies and where the commercials and the economics.
Multi-million-dollar question. I mean,
bigger than that.
Billion-dollar question. Multi-billion-dollar question. Absolutely. Well, are you seeing changes in Google's actual meta search auction? Like, are you seeing changes start to happen there? Speaking of that billion-dollar question.
Yeah. Look, what's interesting about Google is now that they have to devote more real estate to AI answers, they're getting much more commercially minded on the stuff below that. So it's kind of like Amazon, how Amazon has evolved, where there's no real organic search results on Amazon. It's all sponsored. It's all ads. And Google is going to go that way. So I think the whole SEO links, free links down below the fold on Google, that's going to be page 2 or 3. And it's all going to be paid on the front because they simply have to preserve their revenues. And we're certainly seeing that in Kayak's numbers. Our SEO business is going down. I thought it would disappear 20 years ago, by the way. So I'm very thankful that Google didn't.
Got a free 20 years from that perspective, right?
And our paid traffic is going up.
And so you're talking about trust, you're talking about traffic changes, you're talking about all this stuff. I mean, how do you make sure that Kayak is a place that consumers trust for their travel?
Well, look, they come to us to see all their travel options and to see the lowest prices. So the first thing we have to do is get those basics right. The second thing we have to do is have a great user experience. So we have to find the right balance between organic results and ads. We found that on apps. So if you have the Kayak app, it's an awesome experience. It's not polluted by ads. Desktop, less so. For those of you who are still using desktop to search Kayak. And then MWeb is it's right in the middle.
I used the Kayak app to book a hotel in Minneapolis just last night. It was very easy.
Thank you. You helped pay for my airfare this morning.
There you go. All right. So, Steve, thank you so much for joining us today. This was great.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Seth.
Thank you so much.
Everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you for listening to the Skift Travel Podcast. Wherever you're listening, please make sure to subscribe. If you like what you're hearing, rate us 5 stars or leave us a positive review.
It really helps get the word out about us, our podcast, and make sure that we can still continue to bring it to you free of charge every week.
If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe. And don't forget to hit that notification bell as well. That way you'll know every time we have a new episode.